Okay, this is going to be another video for changing the driver's side engine mount on a 2003 Nissan Maxima. We'll need to remove this air box, and I've already taken off the air box intake that's over here. Just two plastic tabs in the frame here pop out. So easy to do. On this, we will need to remove this clip. Remove that. There's about 5 bolts here. You can take the right off, actually. No, you're good. There's one further down here, an extension to get down to this one, just behind the battery on the positive battery terminal. Pull that out of there. It's a medium-sized one. These are a little bit different size length. There's a small one. That was the one right holding this in right there. That's the small one. So we loosen this, and this box should be able to kind of work its way out. Actually, I am going to go ahead and take this bracket out. All right, and then I've got to get this. There's a little plastic clip on the back of this. It's holding this wire harness in on this housing. I did end up loosening this bracket, make it just a little bit easier. And I'm just going to try and get this. There we go. Get that ripped out of there, although I might have bungered those up a little bit. Alright, and then this pops out like that. Right, so here we have the engine mount on the passenger side. There's 4 bolts in each corner that will need to come out, and then one through here. There's a wiring harness on here. I'm going to see if I can't unclip this and pull it off real quick. Okay, so there's a electrical connection onto the engine mount itself. What we're going to do is you get a screwdriver and push here on the side, which kind of depresses a tab. You pull up, and then you take your screwdriver out, and it pulls it off the rest of the way. Just like that. And there's we could take it out of this little wheel well here. It gives us a little bit more wiggle room, but I don't think we're going to need to do that. I'm hoping we can just get around and work around it as is. So I'm going to start by loosening up the center bolt just to get that loose. And then we'll loosen up the 4 that are holding it actually to the transmission. I will be supporting the bottom of the transmission with a jack, and we'll probably need to move it up in order to get this out anyways, but for now I'm going to at least loosen this, and then we'll see when we need to apply pressure to the jack to take off some of the weight. Okay, so now that we've got the wire connector removed, we'll start taking apart the mount. I'm going to go ahead and loosen the bolt that goes through this right now. The back end is actually held into a nut that's welded to the car frame mount of this, and so you don't need a bolt on the other side. You just need to be able to get to 14 millimeter head here. Cheater bar here, that's, or breaker bar. Alright, so that's coming loose. Okay. And I'll probably have an easier time getting that the rest of the way out of there once I get the weight off of it from the transmission. All right, and in order to get one of these little, this mount has a little electrical connection attached to it with a little 10mm bolt, and so we're gonna have to unhook. I unhooked the positive on my battery. I'm gonna go ahead and unhook this positive line to the starter here, just to get this cable out of the way, because we'll probably need to get it off here. There we go. So this cable is now loose, and there is, oh shoot, we may need to loosen another plug in order to get to that, to this little 10mm bolt here, because that is going in the side of the mount. So I'm going to depress the tab on this side and pull that plug out. It's a little bit tight. All right. Sounds loose. Pull it out. That's what you need. I'll put that. Oh, anyway. Use my breaker bar on it just because it gives me just a little bit more leverage all the way up here on the top of this. There we go. I'm going to go ahead and, so on this last one it feels like it's kind of tight and there's probably some pull on the transmission downward. I'm going to go under there and block that and lift it up and jack it up a little bit to take some of that pressure off. So I've gone down and supported that. I'll see if this is any easier to lift. I don't want to bust this last bolt. Then I'd really be in a pickle. Okay, so change of plans on this last bolt. It just feels like it broke loose, but it's not coming out very easily, and I'm worried that there's too much pressure putting on it, and if I keep twisting on it, I'm probably going to shear that off inside the transmission, which is definitely not good. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this pin, or this middle bolt through here, and then the mount will then be separated from the frame of the car, and then hopefully should take that pressure off that last bolt. So I'm going to work on getting this out, just continuing to wrench on it. You know, I need support more on the car. So we'll see what's here. And then I'm going to loosen this. Transmission jack a little bit. Get that pressure off now. See if that mount kind of lowered down enough. And that way, hopefully there's not any up pressure on this last bolt over here. Just need to get that loosened up and then we're good to go. Important lesson here. This just got a lot worse. When I broke this last bolt loose, it gave and then caught. I couldn't really loosen it up very much anymore, but I could kind of retighten it again. And so I think what happened is just the weight of the transmission had pulled and kind of screwed the thread on this last bolt off a little bit. I should have supported the transmission first as I was loosening these bolts to make sure that you get under there, you support the transmission, and back these out. Now it's possible maybe it was just corroded in there. I mean, these were pretty hard to get out. There's a lot of corrosion on the bolts themselves, but I'm going to have to drill this out and hopefully be able to get another bolt back in there. Continuing on though, I'm going to loosen this 10mm bolt up. Oops, wrong one, 12mm. Get that screw out. And this needs to come up out like that. There we go. Now we've got this little bracket right there loosened up. I am going to take this off to make it easier for next time. Or when I'm putting it together, I'm going to go ahead and push that through. At the back. So I can pull this off. That'll just make it easier to put this back on, just getting that off the wire harness. Okay, alright. Let's see, I just gotta work the wires, the brackets around to get this guy out. Alright, yay, got him out. And it's got one of these things on it that says front that way, so you won't be able to put that on wrong. But yeah, this is the old one. Got it out. Just to recap, as I was loosening this bracket from the transmission, I did not have it supported from underneath. And so as I was taking out the bolts on the very last one, and ended up getting stripped, and I ended up breaking it off. And I think that was probably just because the weight was just kind of on that one bolt. And as it came loose, I think it just kind of stretched it a little bit. So I would recommend when you get to this part to unloosen these 4 bolts from the mount, to go ahead and put something on your transmission and jack it up a little bit so that pressure is not pulling down on those. Now, it could also have been a corrosion. I mean, the bolts were pretty corroded when I did inspect them, and they were, kind of pretty hard to break loose. And I was able to use what's called a Big Cert thread repair on this to get it to work. The regular size might not have done it because I was just a little bit off on drilling out my bolt, but I did get it done. And if you the only one that you don't want to strip out would be the transmission bolt, or the mounting bolt for this driver forward spot, because that is not going to be likely repairable angle. You'd have to probably just wait till you drop your transmission, I guess, to repair that hole. The rest of these you could repair. Like I said, mine was this driver's side back one, and it was a little tricky to get to. I did have to buy some extensions and some extra tools to repair it. But these ones closer to the engine actually would have probably been a little bit easier to repair. There we go. So this is my replacement. I just transferred over this plastic cover. It looks like it's kind of just barely hanging on there. And then the side that's going to, anyway, the 2 holes on this side is towards the engine, because there's a little mounting bolt that holds some wiring harnesses into there. And so now I just got to finagle this down back in there and start attaching everything back to it. So that's what I'm going to do right now. All right, and as you put this new mount in here, there's these, I don't know what you call these. Anyway, there's these pads welded onto this mount from the sidewall of this compartment. And so you've actually got to get those mount, the two side things down and underneath that, and they'll sit in there like that. So you can't really put it in and then push it down. You have to get it from the bottom. So we'll see how this goes. Of course, I'll fast forward all the monkeying around that I'm doing here. There we go. Okay. All right. I'm going to just get these started on the mounting bolts here. And of course I had to buy a new bolt to go into this thread repair kit, or it's an M10 1.5 thread. I'm just going to put this down in here. All right. So now I got to get this little bracket into place on the side of this transmission mount. There's a plastic, if you didn't break it, there's a little plastic thing for this tubing that goes up through the hole. And click that back on it. And then this holds in place in this little hole. And then I got to get this little, this is the little bolt that held this in place on the mount. This was difficult to take off because there's a plug attached in these two holes here, which made it difficult to access this screw. This is much easier putting it on than taking it off. So that's on there. And then we've got to start looking at putting some plugs back together here. Actually, just gotta make sure I got all my wires mounted right. Actually, before I get too far, I'm gonna go ahead and work on torquing those bolts down. All right, so I don't know if you can see this, but it's actually 32 to 41 foot-pounds for those mounting bolts and the bolt that goes through the middle of the mount. So actually, I'm just gonna torque them to 32. All right, so I was able to get this pin through and I forgot to hit record, but I've actually had to jack up the transmission quite a bit to get these holes to line up. And then once again, the bolt goes through this way from the front to the back, and then there's the bolt welded into the engine mount here that it torques into. So I'm gonna get this set for 32 foot-pounds, and all right, there we go, we're torqued. I'm going to lower the transmission support here. And there you have it, it's in, torqued in, engine mount on, and I'm just going to start hooking up the wires and clips and everything in the starter here. Yeah, so this actually goes underneath this wire here. I think this was 12 millimeter. Yeah. Okay. And I just got to make sure you get this boot situated over this good so it doesn't cause any grounding or contact to anything else close by it. I think there's a little cable behind it. Let's make sure it's not touching. That should be good right there. Okay, so that starter cable's back on. These two gray plugs are in. The gray plug from the starter that goes below that's plugged in, and then I've kind of unhooked some of these other cables from like the firewall and everything, just to move these around a little bit easier. So I'm going to just kind of plug these back in, these little plastic grommets, into where they were. I just need to work on putting the air box back on. I had that in there just to protect stuff. Don't forget to take that stuff out if you did put a paper towel in there to hold it. Don't forget your little ring here. Alright, had to readjust the camera there. The tripod was resting on this housing and took a tumble. So I'll put this back in here. Relatively easily. Okay, there we go. Okay. Alright, so we gotta tighten this back up. Okay, this clip goes back on. This goes back in here. Now we just have the battery to hook back up. But I won't bother you with that, that'll be an easy step.